How are you, people? It's time for an underwear upgrade. Valentine's Day is just around the corner, and in preparation of an intimate evening with your special someone, you should consider trading in whatever underwear you're currently wearing for a pair of Mack Weldon underwear. Made with a smart design and premium fabrics, Mack Weldon underwear feels and looks great. They even have a line of silver underwear and shirts that are antimicrobial, which means they eliminate odor. And if you don't like the underwear they ship you, just keep it, and Mack Weldon will refund you. No questions asked. Go to MackWeldon.com and get 20% off using promo code WTF. We're also sponsored by Books. Online flower delivery that never disappoints. High quality farm fresh flowers that aren't cut until you order them, so you know they're going to be fresh. And they're not going to lure you in with one price and then hit you up for a bunch of add-ons. The price you see is the price you get. Plus, you get free delivery on weekdays when you register at Books.com. Be a hero this Valentine's Day and save 20% when you order early at Books.com. That's BOUQS.com. Use the promo code WTF for 20% off. All right, let's start the show.
Lock the gate!
All right, let's do this. How are you, what the fuckers, what the fuck buddies, what the fucking ears, what the fuck nicks? What's happening? This is Marc Maron. This is my podcast, WTF. I'm broadcasting now from an undisclosed location, still out in the world, far away, surrounded by water. Can you hear that? That's not static. That's the ocean outside of my window. A double header today. I got a shorty with Dylan Brody. He's a comedian, friend of mine. He's got a special coming out. Dylan Brody's Driving Hollywood, premiering on the streaming service Next Up on February 14th. Go to nextupcomedy.com. And also the amazing Bill Paxton, who you all know from Aliens, from Weird Science, from Big Love he was in, Apollo 13, True Lies, Tombstone. Great. Bill Paxton's going to be here. So yeah, there you go. I've set up the show. I also want to take a moment to say that a friend of mine, a guy who's been on this show, a great rock journalist, Mark Spitz, has passed away at the age of 47. I have no details. I just found out myself, and I didn't find out in a personal way. I don't know what happened, but it does seem to be true. He was a very intense guy. He was very engaged. He led a very chaotic and crazy life. He's a very wild spirit, man, up and down. And he's passed away, and it's a sad thing. And I just wanted to say rest in peace, Mark Spitz. I also want to direct people, as we usually do in these somber situations, to the repost of the episode I did with Mark. A WTF episode will now be again in the feed if you want to introduce yourself to Mark now that he's gone, or if you miss that. It's out of respect that I do it. So what? I don't know if you've ever been in a relationship with a bully before, but I have. I've been in many relationships with a bully because I'm a bully. I understand it. I've had to do a lot of work on myself to tone it down. It comes from insecurity, comes from narcissism, it comes from a need to be loved and an inability to love. There's a million things that cause bulliness, but they're never satisfied. And I'm speaking from my own heart here as somebody who has struggled with this type of stuff, but I'm just saying that, many of us are in a fairly involuntary relationship with a pretty intense bully, and they just keep coming. They just keep coming. They just keep trying to knock you off your grounding. They try to knock you off your sense of self. They try to destroy your sense of reality to get you to a place where you don't know what's up or down, and then they can feel, they can feel superior. They can feel like they have power. They can feel like they can get something over on you. But if they're not narcissistic, they, once they get you to that place, they apologize shortly thereafter and try to take care of you. I'm not sure that's in the situation we're all in, but I'm just saying that the only way out of that is to somehow get away from it, to find some space, to get out, to pull your sense of self together, to re-engage with life, but remain vigilant and do what needs to be done for yourself and others. So I've been out here on the island, and it's been very up and down. It's been up and down. It is very relative to my engagement with information coming in through my phone. And also the phone thing. If these phones are so fucking smart, why aren't they more intuitive? Where's the intuitive phone that you get on and you pop open your browser and it just says, "Hey, maybe give it an hour." How would that be? Or you're looking at it and it's like, "Yeah, you know what? You've had enough for now. I think you've had enough." Or maybe it just says, "We're all worried about you. Take a break. You're in over your head here." We all have to allow ourselves to have lives. You got to make time to connect and appreciate and spend time with others and talk to others and stay engaged, right? I mean, Jesus, I'm hiking today and I saw a sign in front of this pond. There were 4 ponds. We're on this hike and there's a sign that just says, "No fishing. Do not introduce foreign fish." And I'm thinking like, well, this thing has really gone too far. This ban. This is crazy. It was already crazy. Do not introduce foreign fish. My friend Dylan Brody stopped by to talk a bit about what he's got going on. He's got his special, Dylan Brody's Driving Hollywood, premieres on the streaming service Next Up on February 14th. Go to nextupcomedy.com. Before we get to him, I want to tell you a little bit about the history of comedy. It's CNN's new original 8-part series that explores what makes people laugh from vaudeville to the hottest new comedians, movies, and TV shows. The series will go deep into topics ranging from political humor to slapstick, not only to explore the voices that have made us laugh over generations, but also to find out what worked about their comedy, how it was relevant and groundbreaking at the time, and how comedy has evolved over the years. Through archival footage, all new interviews with comedy legends and luminaries, and original material, the history of comedy will explore comedy of all kinds, stand-up, radio, sketch, musical, film, animation, theater, and more, and deliver the definitive story of the art form. The History of Comedy premieres February 9th at 10 p.m. Eastern on CNN. It's a show about comedy, not a comedy show. Dig? And I think I'm in it. I know I talked to them for at least 3 hours, but that could mean I'm in it for 2 minutes. But I believe I'm in it. But okay, so this is my conversation with my friend Dylan Brody. Dylan Brody, I haven't seen you in a long time.
I think it's been 3 years, 4 years.
You seem to be putting a lot of time into your attire.
I always put a great deal of time.
I know the last time we were here, I think we talked about you once carrying a sword.
I did. I carried a sword in college I as a fashion accessory.
So you like to make a bold statement.
To say the most.
Now it's a 3-piece suit, but not a dandy. We're not a dandy. We're sort of a mixture of Old West and professor.
British gentleman professor, the lapel jacket. And notice that the phone is on the watch chain.
Uh-huh. So you got a plan.
I have to always have some affectation going, so that if I'm at a party or at a meeting and feel awkward.
You want to make sure you feel the most awkward possible?
No, it allows me to feel as though I have chosen who I am in this circumstance. Yeah. And now if I feel awkward, that's their problem.
Interesting. So you say, like, I'm going to trump your awkward with overdoing it.
That might be all it is. Yeah. That might be all it is. Also, I like clothes.
Yeah. Of course you feel uncomfortable because look how I'm dressed.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Or isn't it amazing?
Yeah. I like to have everybody, regardless of where they're working, feel as though I walked in class to join up.
Okay.
For years, I was a stoned, angry, political stand-up comic. And then I quit smoking pot and took 10 years off. and reinvented myself as a humorist and storyteller. And had started out when I was doing that, doing it in a studio alone without an audience, and was starting to take it out into the world again. And as I took it out into the world again, I found the narcissism rising in me. And began to explore that in a lot of the stories and talk about it and acknowledge it.
You meant you felt a great deal of the rush of self-importance.
The rush of self-importance, the desire to have other people acknowledge the quality of my work.
Yeah, how good you are.
Yeah. I had been on the East Coast and had a conversation with my father. At that time, he was stepping down as Associate Provost for the Arts at MIT. And he was going to go back to teaching theater at MIT until last year when he finally retired. And they hired me to host the party at which he was stepping down. So I was going to be the MC. I was going to bring up a lot of people who were going to speak. I did physics jokes. I did a bunch of stuff. Then at the end, I closed with an improvisational thing where I take first line, last line from the audience, and then I do different playwright styles. So I did a monologue in the style of David Mamet, and I did a monologue in the style of William Shakespeare, and then I did a monologue in the style of my father. And I don't usually do my father because no one's ever heard of him outside of a certain small community, but for this occasion it was right. And the thing went stunningly well.
His friends appreciated it.
As did he. He said he didn't know that he had a voice as a playwright until he heard me do the style of
now he's writing a show. So the narcissism runs back.
He is a playwright.
Runs down the line.
Yeah, he's always writing a show. So the next day I'm in the car with him, and there's a long silence, and he said, "What are you thinking about?" And I said, "Well, the show went well last night." And he said, "Yes." And I said, "I'm trying to figure out why I keep trying to fish for compliments." And he said, "Oh, that's because as a performer, you're always experiencing the world as the object of someone else's experience, not as the subject of your own experience." And that set my brain on fire, and I started to think about that. And there have been a lot of thoughts and stories that have come out of that one sentence that came out of his mouth for me. But
you wait your whole life for your dad to say something relevant.
Oh, he is irritatingly relevant far too often. Oh, it's so frustrating. It's very hard to get ahead of him. But it started to crack the narcissism for me and shift the way I looked at the world and how I approached my work and how I approached other people. And
threw you a real bone at this juncture in your life.
Yes. But it meant that I needed to re-examine the stories I was writing because now I couldn't keep playing up narcissism, which had become part of my shtick.
Right.
And the last time I gave up my shtick, which was I'm a liberal angry pot smoker, it had taken me 10 years to get a hold of myself.
You don't have that kind of time
and
now.
I feel the crushing presence of my own mortality at every moment.
It's hard to figure out once you get some resolution around your sense of self to, how do you move forward from that? Or why would you? Why don't you just stop?
Now that I know who I am, who the hell am I?
Well, there's that, but there's also sort of like with the political climate changing like it is, I feel that.
There's work to be done again. Well, I feel like there's work to be done again.
Well, of course there is, but there's also sort of like, I just started feeling okay.
Right.
Now I can't.
Right.
Now, I can, but it's going to be relative to a reality that's not okay with me. And there's a struggle there, but there's part of me that's sort of like, I didn't want to fight this one again.
Yeah. My dad, actually, I will tell you a short story because, it's what I do for a living. When I was in high school, Reagan was elected. And I called my dad in a panic because I was at prep school and everyone else really loved Reagan. And I was like, no, not so much. And I felt all alone. I called my dad and he said, there's a pendulaic swing. It'll be conservative for a while. It's fine. It goes back and forth. And then, when Bush the second was elected, I called my dad and I said, we're back to this. And he said, it's okay. It's a pendulum. We had 8 years. And I said, but it was still all the capitalist stuff going on. It wasn't like we had a huge change. It moves slowly. Don't worry. It's okay. Relax, breathe. And then, in November, because I had been ready to celebrate.
Sure,
Hillary was going to win. I was going to celebrate like AIDS had been cured, and I owned the patent. It was like I had
unprecedented third-term Democratic leadership.
Exactly, and instead I wound up spending the night disguising my attic door as a bookcase. So I called
your dad.
I called my dad the next day, and I said, "Dad, I need your wisdom and your calm and your insight into this." And he said, "We're fucked."
Oh, good.
And he called me a week later and he said, you know what, I was sort of joking around last week, but I thought I was done with my days marching, but I just went out and bought new sneakers.
Oh, yeah.
He's 80 years old and he's going to be out,
yeah,
as will I, on different coasts.
Right.
And yeah, I feel like there's work to be done. But I feel as though, and my wife agrees with me on this, which might be why we're such a good pair. I feel as though what is not normal is if you don't indulge in suicidal ideation as you go to sleep.
In terms of what's happening, or in general?
No, just in general.
No, I don't have that.
That doesn't happen to you? Okay.
I don't have suicidal ideation anymore. Congratulations. There are times where as I get older, that I feel hopeless, or that I feel, there's this element of me where I'm like, I was just starting to figure things out and things were leveling off and in a good way. And now, I'm scared. So, things like this, when you have a brain that is, wired to be, I'm fucked.
Yeah.
I overcame a lot of that in a lot of ways. And then when there's a real reason for us to feel that, then it pollutes everything else.
Did I tell you about when I first got medicated for my depression?
No.
Oh, man. I had been depressed my whole life and didn't know it.
Yeah.
And I had self-medicated for years with pot and didn't know that's what I was doing.
Yeah.
And then I got on Paxil. I'm thinking 10 years ago now, 8 years ago, they put me on Paxil. And I felt the depression lift. And it was like I was...
The weight on your heart.
I was feeling very different about the world.
Yeah.
And that was odd. And after 8 months, the doctor said, so do you want to wean off of it? And I said, oh, okay, sure. Is that what we do now? And he said, yeah. And he said, so cut back by a quarter of a pill for a week and a half. And
so it can get you over the hump and reconfigure things?
Yeah. So I cut back by a quarter of a pill. And 3 days later, I'm on my way to a meeting.
Uh-huh.
And as I'm driving to the meeting, I'm figuring out all the things I can be pissed off about when I get there. I'm in traffic and I can be pissed off because it took me so goddamn long to get here. And the traffic's not that bad. And I get everywhere early. It doesn't matter. If they make me pay for parking, I'm going to be sad. I don't even have a job yet and I'm going to go to a meeting and make me pay for parking. They better. And I get there and there's a parking spot right out front and I pull into the parking spot and I call my shrink and I go, okay, I cut back by a quarter of a pill for 3 days, and I can feel all the darkness on the planet crawling up my spine and infesting the dark crevices of my brain. Is that normal? And he said, and this was your first depression ever that we were treating for?
Yeah.
And I said, no, I've been depressed my whole life. He said, oh, stay on it. Apparently you are supremely attuned to this drug. We found the right one for you. Stay on it.
Yeah.
And I went back on, and I have been virtually fine since.
In terms of chemical depression.
In terms of chemical depression.
Reasonable depression you have.
Yeah, I still have sadness. I still have anger. I still have rage. And I often say that I'm medicated by a strict Orwellian therapist who likes to keep me sedated against political outrage. But that's not true. I still get politically outraged.
I know.
But it doesn't all feel like it's my fault and my responsibility and everyone is against me.
Right.
It just feels like I got work to do.
Right. Well, that's a better way to frame it.
Isn't it? And I would have had no way of doing that without the chemical change.
So, well, I'm happy for you.
Well, thank you. You look happy.
So now you seem to do some sort of special or CD or something like like monthly.
I am ridiculously prolific.
Yeah. You making a living?
Intermittently.
Yeah.
I make an intermittent living. When I'm not making a big living, my wife supports us.
Oh, well, married the right person. I guess.
She's wonderful. She's incredibly supportive of me and what I do. And one of the things that happened when I quit smoking pot is that I realized I had been using it to make myself stupider.
Sure. Well, the difference between thought and action, the distance becomes very vast.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so much easier just to have more chips.
Yeah.
And I was writing then, I was writing a lot and performing all the time, but I was slowing myself down and slowing down my thought process and my creative process. And once I was off, suddenly I wanted to get all these ideas into the world. And it matters to me more that I get the ideas into the world than it does that I make a fortune.
Right.
I like making a living. I'm not driven to make a killing.
Right. Yeah, I'm the same way.
So, and at the same time, there's part of me that really wants the widespread recognition that would come through, NPR or IFC. There's the desire to be more accepted by the people who seem to have money to put into projects that I don't always have to put into projects.
You'd be surprised at how much that isn't there as much as you might assume.
I figure that to be the case because what I am learning at every step of this career is that there is far more illusion in show business than there is business or show.
Well, there's a lot of people taking meetings.
Yeah.
And there's a lot, things get made, but the landscape has become, cluttered and fragmented to the point where, you can earn an honest living. You can't make a fortune.
That's, yeah.
You can figure out, some people make fortunes. I don't seem to be destined for that, but I make a good living.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of platforms, a lot of places to put things, and the money keeps going away as the audience becomes more fragmented. What are you going to do?
That's exactly right.
So how many CDs have you put out?
I put out 5 CDs with stand-up records, and then 1 over-length audio digital download with Rooftop Comedy.
Sure.
That one is called Dylan Goes Electric.
And those are all audio?
Those are all audio. And now last year I shot 3 new specials in one night. We had a full house, 3 shows. I catered it.
You cooked?
No, I had someone else do it, but I did all the performing and all the writing, so that counts for something.
3 shows, hour long?
The first one ran exactly an hour, 61 minutes. That's the one that's coming out next month. The second one ran about 48 minutes, and the third one I think ran 36. I may be getting that wrong.
So you had these people sit through 3?
Yeah.
With breaks?
In between, they get catering, and I change my clothes, yeah.
Huh. And you're going to release all of them as visual?
They're all shot, multi-camera, with a jib and a balcony and the full thing.
Okay.
Because they're theatrical and spoken word storytelling as opposed to what I used to do as, shotgun stand-up comedy.
Sure.
It took me a little while to find the right home for any of them. So now Next Up Comedy out of London is putting out the first one, Dylan Brody's Driving Hollywood.
Yeah.
And at the same time, Blue Panther Productions out of San Francisco is putting me together with a director. And we're doing it as a fully staged solo show with a set and lighting cues.
When's that?
That's going to be going on tour in the spring.
And this is not the one you recorded. This is
It
new.
is. It's the same material. It's largely the same material in Dylan Brody's Driving Hollywood, but it's reimagined as a fully staged production.
Huh.
And this is probably the most Spalding Gray I've gotten in my work, this show. It's a little bit dark and funny and revealing and self-loathing. I so enjoy, now that I've learned how to do it, having a silent audience waiting for the next thing is the most beautiful thing.
A respectful audience is the best you can ask for.
Oh, it makes me so happy.
And money.
Yeah, just enough to keep the mortgage paid. That's
okay, I'm with you there. Well, it was great talking to you, buddy. Good seeing you.
The pleasure is mine. Thank you so much for having me on. I am honored and delighted to be in your garage.
Again, Dylan Brody's Driving Hollywood premieres on the streaming service. Next up on February 14th. Go to nextupcomedy.com. Dylan Brody. That was good hanging out with Dylan, but I'll tell you, man, when I got an opportunity to talk to Bill Paxton, I was pretty excited. He's an intense, engaged, lively dude. It was good to talk to him. And I'll share that conversation with you. But if you're looking to hire someone, don't you wish you could post to all the top job sites at once? Now you can. Just use ZipRecruiter to immediately post your job to 100+ job sites. You can also post to social media sites like Facebook and Twitter. Just post once and watch your qualified candidates roll into ZipRecruiter's easy-to-use interface. And ZipRecruiter already has 9 million resumes you can search through in their database. However you want to say it. Find candidates in any city or industry nationwide. This is the last hiring tool you're ever going to need. No more juggling emails or calls to your office. Quickly screen candidates, rate them, and hire the right person fast. If you have any issues, get in touch with ZipRecruiter's support staff. You'll get help from an actual friendly human. I know, crazy, right? Friendly human? Find out today why ZipRecruiter has been used by more than 1 million businesses and has been featured in Forbes, The Wall Street Journal, TechCrunch, and more. WTF listeners can post jobs on ZipRecruiter for free by going to ZipRecruiter.com/Maron. That's ZipRecruiter.com/Maron. Bill Paxton. Who doesn't love Bill Paxton? Seriously. Who among us does not love Bill Paxton? He's on this new CBS show, Training Day, which airs Thursday nights, but you know him from any number of things. Aliens, of course. I got to get him to say that. Well, let's find out. This is me and the amazing Bill Paxton. Pull the mic in a little. Oh, there you go. That's good.
It's right in my beezer.
Yeah, I know, man. It's so funny to talk to you because, like, back in the day when I did a radio show, you know, you got those machines, those 360 machines with sound bites on them. And I had that one where you're like, it's over, man.
Game over, man. It's game over. God, I get requested that line a lot.
Did you say we're fucked, too?
I said fucking A. It's a great scene where, you know,
an alien.
We've had the big shot where we've just been hosed our first battle with the aliens in the APC.
Yeah.
And Michael Bean is talking to Sigourney about getting off site and nuking it from outer space.
Right.
And Paul Reiser's trying to, trying to defend it for the corporation. And I say something like, and Sigourney says something like, it's, we'll get into orbit, we'll nuke the site from outer space, and it's the only way to be sure. And I'm like, fucking A, man. And I hadn't seen that in a long time, and we had a 30-year reunion which is unbelievable.
Really?
At Comic-Con, everybody
for
was
just
there.
Aliens 2 or all of them?
For Aliens 2.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it kind of stands alone in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I was a huge fan of Ridley's original Alien.
Oh yeah, it's great. But yeah, the second one, kind of built the franchise, didn't it?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
But Jim was smart. He knew. The first one is kind of like a ride in a spook house.
Yeah,
you don't know where the thing's going to jump out.
A thriller.
And then he thought, you can't do that twice.
Right.
So this time I'm going to have them literally coming out of the woodwork.
Just as many aliens as possible.
Yeah.
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 And they did what they do, 4?
God, I don't even know.
Keep tapping that thing. What's funny about sequels, because you're just telling me in the kitchen that the reason that they made Mighty Joe Young was because they had such a great success with King Kong.
Huge success.
Right.
And then they realized, oh no,
he's dead.
We killed the goose. We butchered it. We barbecued it. So they thought, well, wait a minute. What if we come up with a monkey who's not so big, but still could throw some shit around?
Yeah. But you've had quite a fucking career.
Had a bizarre career.
Dude, you've been in some of the best movies.
Kind of one of these zigzag things, up, down, all around.
But where'd you grow up?
I was born and raised in Fort Worth, Texas.
Really? Yeah. Well, I don't know why I say really, like you'd be lying to me.
I might as well be. The reason I was born there was because of my grandfather, who I never knew, from Kansas City.
Yeah.
He read an article about a flamboyant wheeler dealer, a guy who was kind of a William Randolph Hearst character forward, named Eamon Carter. And he was sitting in Kansas City reading the Saturday Evening Post in 1935. And he had a hardwood lumber distribution thing.
Your grandfather?
Yeah, he started this hardwood lumber thing with So he was going to put a yard. He wanted to expand and put a yard in Dallas, but he read this article about this guy in Fort Worth. So he went down there and he went, that's why I'm from there. My dad, after he died, my grandfather died in 1950. Bless you.
He took on the lumber business?
Well, he joined the lumber business, but he had to kind of answer to his brother and his mother.
Yeah.
And so he moved down to Fort Worth.
And wait, so he was kind of in the lumber business?
He was. This was his. He started selling hardwood flooring for his dad when he was 16.
So you'd go down.
My dad's the reason I'm out here.
Really?
Oh, he's the reason we're talking right now.
He is?
Oh, yeah.
Why?
I think he always wanted to be an actor, but he was the kind of guy who, He was very flamboyant, very colorful.
Yeah, big storyteller, raconteur. What kind of colorful?
A true raconteur.
Yeah.
And he started selling flooring for his dad when he was 16. He was in the war. He was stationed on the Rockefeller Estate outside of New York City. He ended up in Chicago after that because there was a yard down there, working there. Then he met my mom outside of a church, and which he never went to. He said he was a pagan, and
not religious folks.
Yeah, and then my brother Bob, my older brother, was born in Skokie, and then they moved to Fort Worth. But from an early age, my dad, ever since I can remember, he was taking me to movies and plays, and we'd come out and he'd want to talk about these. He'd deconstruct them. He'd say, "Hey, I thought the music was great in that movie, didn't you?" And I'm like, "The music?
Right.
Oh yeah, there's music."
So you learned how to
art direction, lighting, and so
he was a fan, and but he was sort of a film nerd, and a theater nerd.
And he loved art. He said he had a 5th grade teacher, which would have probably been about 1930 for him. He was born in 20. That turned him on to Rubens, Peter Paul Rubens, the Renaissance painter. And he had a great affinity and a great love of art, but he wasn't an intellectual. He read everything. I've been going through a lot of his stuff. My mom passed last June at 90.
Sorry. Oh, 90. That's
she was ready to go.
Yeah.
So I've been kind of closing down the house. They had a beautiful library of books, and they just read everything.
And they stayed in Fort Worth?
Stayed in Fort Worth till about 1980, and then my dad decided it was just too hot down there. And even though my mom and them had friends, he moved out to Solana Beach, California.
How far is that from here?
That's right next to Del Mar.
So they were close.
Meets the surf. Yeah.
So you saw him?
Yeah, I saw him a lot. It was great. We were real pals. Anybody that knew me at all knew my dad. We were a package.
Yeah, you palled around a lot?
Yeah. And he lived to 91. He passed in 2011. I was in Romania doing Hatfield and McCoy's when he passed.
That's a great show. That was a great movie, dude. I can't remember if it was a miniseries or a movie. But
it was a miniseries.
I watched the whole thing because that thing had been sort of dealt with before, but you guys kind of killed it.
Yeah, kind of
was it you and Costner?
Eastern Western. Yeah,
yeah, it was fucking great.
I wasn't sure I wanted to do it. I just come out of Big Love, and I thought, I'd kind of played a pretty religious guy, and the way Randall McCoy was written in this, that he was almost kind of a zealot in some ways. And I called Costner up. They set me up so I'd met him in passing over the years. I've kind of met everybody.
Right, sure.
I've been around so damn long. But and he said, "Oh man, we're gonna be wearing beards and stuff. It's not gonna be like that show." And
like what show? Like
Big Love. Where I was, it was completely different. But I just felt like, wow, I played a pretty religious guy in that, and I loved that show.
I did too.
We got to talk about that, but I thought, maybe this is going to be, you want to mix it up a little bit.
Oh, you were afraid that you'd be typecast as a zealot?
Yeah. So I mean, he said, "Oh man, we're going to be wearing beards and we're going to Romania," and I went, "What? We're going where?"
Romania.
He goes, "Yeah, I know. You haven't heard about that?" He goes, "Yeah, we're going to shoot the whole thing in Romania. We're going to use all the old sets from this movie Cold Mountain, and we're going to be in Bucharest." And it was a great experience, except, that my pop died while I was on it. But he had done his thing. He got out clean, I like to say. He was 91.
That's
out clean.
And, he lived a good life.
Lived a good life, and it faltered a little bit at the end, but really didn't have a tough exit.
I guess it puts stuff into perspective, huh? I mean, both of my folks are still alive, and but when they lived when you lived to 90.
Yeah, and I was in my 50s when they passed. So I mean, that's great, especially if you've had a good relationship with your parents.
Well, that's great. I don't hear that too often.
Well, yeah. My dad used to say I wasn't weird. I told him I wanted to be an actor at one point.
Yeah.
And he said, "You're not weird enough to be an actor. You haven't had enough neurotic, weird stuff happen to you." And I said, "Oh, Dad, I had plenty.
Someday I'll tell you."
Yeah.
But it's weird the Hatfield McCoys, because it was one of those things that was on like the History Network, right?
The History Channel, it kind of legitimized that network overnight because they had such phenomenal ratings.
Yeah, because I was flipping around, and I don't know how I heard of it, but I started watching, I'm like, holy shit, this is great.
Yeah.
These guys are really doing it.
Yeah.
You and Costner were really fucking doing it.
It was crazy over there, too.
Yeah.
The Wranglers didn't speak English, and they put us on all these Romanian stallions, and God, we're trying to ride through these hardwood forests. And I realized very early on that with a wide brim hat and a huge beard, I probably just needed to be in the medium and the close-up shots. So I let this guy, and he was a nice guy, but God, he'd gotten hurt doing some medieval times thing over there, and he got hit with a lance and it had gone through his left eye socket and out the top of his head.
Oh my God!
So he had the gnarliest scar you've ever seen.
And he was a stunt guy?
He was my guy.
So he was the guy in the beard on the horse.
Yeah, I paid him extra, I tell you. Take care of me here, will you?
You're not much of a horse guy?
Well, kind of yes and no. I got to go to a horseback riding camp when I was a kid, and I did a lot of rodeo. And back in those days, I was up in Wyoming.
Real rodeo? You rode the
well,
bucking,
I didn't. No, I didn't do. They didn't let you do that. But
a little
they
roping.
let you, a little roping, a little. They had a little horse race, had a 1/4-mile track, and that was fun.
It was like I guess maybe it's not quite like riding a bike because every horse is different.
I tell you, there's nothing more exciting than being in a horse race.
Yeah.
But you want to be out front, because if you're not, it's amazing how many dirt clods are hitting you in the face. It's just, you can't hardly see. It's like being in a maelstrom of dirt. And but it's cool nowadays because of insurance and all. They would never let your kids out there riding horses full gallop on a horse track. They just never like to do it.
Well, I mean, unless you've grown up in that kind of life.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's true.
So you spent your whole childhood...
I was a suburban kid from Fort Worth.
From Texas.
Yeah, I could have been from anywhere. I was listening to Jimi Hendrix and riding motorcycles.
He came through there. He played Texas. I talked to Billy Gibbons about that from ZZ Top. But you were a kid. You've met who? Billy?
I met Billy, and God, I remember Billy's. I remember with ZZ Top when they were kind of a regional band. Their first hit was a regional hit called "Shakin' Your Tree."
Yeah.
And they used to play down at Panther Hall in Fort Worth.
Oh, really?
They used to call Fort Worth Panther City because, I guess, legendary. They were Panthers living there at some point.
Did you go see him?
Went to see him. I remember they opened for Edgar and Johnny Winter.
Oh my God!
They were amazing.
They both did their own songs.
Oh, and they played together.
It's so weird because they're so different, man.
Oh,
like Johnny's straight up blues, hard rock, and Edgar's like this keyboard, almost prog rock shit.
Oh, they were great.
Yeah,
they were great.
They're Texan too.
They were Texan. They grew up playing on a local Dallas TV show where they were playing country.
So it was ZZ Top and the Winter Brothers.
Yeah, and Blood Rock opened too.
I don't know who Blood Rock is.
They had one hit. It was called DOA.
Uh-huh.
We were flying low and hit something in the air, and I remember.
That was them.
Yeah. There were a lot of car accidents growing up in Texas, even though you have complete wide open spaces.
Sure.
There were the most horrendous, fatalistic car accidents growing up. I remember going to funerals of friends and stuff.
Just because it's like everybody had those big fast cars, and when you have the open highway, you just want to drive fast.
GTX.
Yeah. So you're just growing up in Texas.
Growing up in
one
Texas.
older brother.
Got an older brother, and I got a younger sister, younger brother.
It's for you.
Yeah.
Everybody's all right.
Yeah, everybody's hanging in there.
Yeah.
And
when did the interest in acting come? Were you like athletic guy? Did you?
I wasn't really. One thing I like about films and television is I dig being a part of a concerted group that are trying to make something.
Yeah.
We're all so alienated and so isolated in modern society in so many ways. Even though we have all this technology to supposedly connect us, we're as isolated as we've ever been.
Oh no, it's horrible.
I kind of dreamed of the Renaissance where you're born and you become an apprentice in a guild, and it takes all these different disciplines to build a cathedral, and that's kind of what it takes to make a film.
True.
It's one of the last of the great guild crafts.
Yeah, there's guilds and there's unions now, but that's true.
But you have the different departments that have to come together in concert, and it's fun. So I wasn't an athlete. But I always envied that team thing. The team and the camaraderie. Because when I went to Catholic school, and then my dad got a wild hair up his ass when I was in 7th grade. Next thing I knew, we'd moved out to the country from Fort Worth. So I went from being basically a suburban kid from anywhere USA.
Yeah.
To this, I was living in the Last Picture Show, this Baptist community about
how old were you?
30 miles. I was 13. But it was kind of wild because those country girls were a lot wilder than the suburban girls.
Yeah, and you were like new meat, fresh meat.
But I wasn't a football player, and it was all about playing football and stuff. But so I felt a little isolated. Also, when I was that age, I got a weird ailment. Woke up one night. I'd been to a hockey game, and I woke up in the middle of the night and had a lot of pain in my left wrist. And I went downstairs and knocked on my dad and my mom and dad's door.
Yeah.
And I said, Dad, and he said, what is it, son? He said, I'm in a lot of pain. Something wrong with this. He goes, oh, you probably slept on it.
Yeah.
And then he said, you'll be okay. Just go back to bed. By morning, it was worse. And it was a Sunday morning. My dad realized he took me to a friend of his who was a ortho guy, bone guy. And he kind of said it, kind of enwrapped it. Couldn't really figure out what it was. And so the next day I had some tests done by the pediatrician. And then by Tuesday night I was in the Cook's Children's Hospital. And they still couldn't figure out. Finally they thought I had something called osteomyelitis, or it could be this thing, rheumatic fever.
Yeah.
Rheumatic fever.
Rheumatic fever.
And that's what it was.
Really?
So I spent a good part of the 7th grade, and this was before we moved to the country, in bed.
What is rheumatic fever? What does it affect?
Rheumatic fever comes from a streptococcus infection from a strep throat that kind of goes untreated. I'd had kind of a bad sore throat at Christmas time. Yeah, don't get sick during the holidays or during the weekend if you can help it. A lot of guys buy the ranch because of the
holidays?
The illness hits at the wrong time. But truly, yeah. So I had this. So I had this thing, and what it does is it's supposedly it's an infection, and somehow it kind of got into my wrist, but it usually damages your heart valves.
Did it?
Well, yeah. A
little bit?
Yeah.
Rheumatic fever.
Yeah.
It sounds a little...
But it kind of isolated me at an interesting age.
Yeah.
It suddenly made me, because I grew up in Texas, and that sounds like, something out in the country, but again, it was suburban. We lived near a golf course. I spent all my time on the golf course hunting golf balls.
Yeah.
Listening to the Beach Boys and the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, and then, getting to go to camp in the summer and all that stuff. And, I was a real outgoing kid. I wasn't a jock, but I did a lot of stuff. But suddenly I was in this kind of voyeuristic kind of world where I had a TV, but there wasn't much TV in those days, and I read a lot. And I just kind of looked out the window, and at the golf course.
And that was it?
About 6 months, yeah.
And just sitting in bed?
Yeah.
Thinking about things?
Yeah.
No revelations?
So
your dad was Catholic, but you're not a religious
No, my dad
guy.
wasn't Catholic. My mother was Catholic. My dad was no religion.
Right.
He called himself
a pagan.
But in order to marry my mother, he met my mom in Chicago. It's kind of a good story. He had an apartment. He had a great bachelor pad on Lakeshore Drive, LSD,
Sure.
1400 LSD,
Yeah.
and he had one of his buddies, this guy named Charlie Dent. He was a young pilot for United, and they were out one night. And my dad, there was some place, I think it was called Dante's. It's kind of a famous old kind of bar restaurant in near the Loop. And he saw this gal with these other gals, and he had this buddy, Andy Muldoon. He said, who is that? He said, that's Mary Lou Gray. He said, oh, God, you got to introduce me to her. And he said, well, come on over. He goes, no, not here.
Yeah.
So he said, so he called him the next day. He said, hey, she goes to my church, and she'll be there Sunday. Why don't you go to church with me? I think it's the only time my dad ever went into a church beside when he married her.
Right.
Because my dad was kind of guy goes, why do you got to go to a church? Can't you look at this beautiful tree?
Yeah.
Why don't you just worship under the tree in the nude and just give praise to whatever it is?
Right.
Yeah, he's one of those guys. While we were at church, he'd be naked on a chaise lounge in the backyard reading the latest Ian paperback.
Is that true?
Yeah, that's very true. Very true. So God, he went to the church and he met my mom. He was with her for 2 weeks, and this is kind of weird. You don't think this is weird, but again, I told you I've been going through a lot of my folks' stuff. I found a picture I'd never seen, and I made a card of it to kind of send out in my mom's memoriam.
Oh,
that's
look at
my
that.
mom and dad. That's in Chicago. That's 1950.
Oh, wow.
And she's 25. My dad's 30 there.
Oh, look
he
at
dated
that.
her for 2 weeks and proposed marriage to her.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And so in order, getting back to the Catholic thing, in order to get married in the Catholic Church, I don't know if it's still that way now, but if it was someone who wasn't a Catholic, a non-Catholic, you had to get married. To get married in the church, you had to sign a piece of paper that said any children born of this marriage will be raised in the Catholic Church. And my dad said he would have signed anything. He said, even your mother worshiped pagan idolatry, I didn't care.
Yeah.
So
he signed.
He signed, and we were raised Catholic, and I went to Catholic school from the time I was in kindergarten till I was through the 7th grade. And you'd have a lay teacher one year, and then you'd have a nun, a sister.
Right.
And it was kind of a bizarre experience. I also was an altar boy. Me and my brother would do the Friday night Vespers service. I love that.
But it's interesting that you're growing up in a household where your dad's is a character,
He's a
and
total
your mother's
character.
a Catholic who's crossed a bear. With probably
John,
right.
Not in front of the children. He was
Right.
all the time.
All the time.
My dad was the kind of guy. We'd be getting into the car. He had a lot of stock kind of lines and stuff. One of his stock lines was whatever he was putting the keys in the ignition of the car. He'd say, "Oh hell, I couldn't find this thing if it had hair around it." Oh, John, the children, and he'd go, and we were cutting up in the back seat or something. He goes, "Come on, he goes, pipe down or I'll kick a lung out of you." These were terms of endearment.
Right, but your mom was just like, here we go.
Yeah. Well, it was kind of a faux thing she did, that faux shockness,
Because she had to do something.
She had her wild side, too.
Yeah, yeah.
And they loved to throw parties. God, they just threw parties
Like those
all the
classic
time.
50s and 60s
But
parties?
sometimes, all of a sudden, we'd be taken to a motel for the night, and...
By who?
I was raised by a woman named Clemence Jones.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't say Clemence as a kid, so I called her Monsi. I knew Monsi her whole life.
Yeah.
And Monsi said, "Bill, I knew you before you knew yourself." And if I was cutting up, she'd say something like, "If you're going to be a clown, be a first-class clown and get paid for it." And I want to say thank you, Monsi. I took that advice to heart.
You became a first-class clown.
Our parents would send us to the motel for the night. But then I remember other nights when we were at the house, especially this house on Indian Creek Drive that was near the golf course. That was my parents' dream house. My dad built it with all these great hardwoods, the flooring.
Yeah, connections for the woods.
And my dad was into art, so there was great art on the walls, and we had an upstairs section, and they could kind of close off the other side of the house.
Oh, yeah.
And the parties would just be going on, and I remember one of the best memories. It's that sense memory, that smell.
Yeah.
That really takes you back to a place. But I remember my mother coming up in that rustle of those crinoline dresses, and long skirts, and just that rustle, and coming to kind of kiss me goodnight while the party's going on. And there was this mixture of gin, perfume, and cigarettes. And it was just an ambrosial smell. Wonderful, wonderful smell. And that, to this day, that's my mother.
Wow. It's hard to find that smell out in the wild these days.
It really is. You got to go to Europe to catch.
Sure, Gin's not that popular. No one smokes anymore.
Yeah. You got to go to Europe to get that.
Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah. So I was like, was your mother... How far back? You're a little older than me. She was a Catholic. I mean, I was reading up on you a little bit. Was she a big Kennedy person?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But really, it was my older brother, Bob, because, see, I was 11 and he was 8 when Kennedy came through Fort Worth on that fateful trip. And we could see down from, where we could see past the golf course, and we could see down to Carswell Air Force Base. And my brother had gotten a telescope. Yeah. And we looked down, and we saw Air Force One with the presidential seal on it. And my dad came up, and we were just about to go to bed. Yeah. And it was later in the night, and we had gotten to kind of stay up. And my dad said, you guys want to, we'll go watch the motorcade drive by. So so I literally had my pajamas on. I put a robe on. I had my slippers on. My brother and I, we got my dad's Jetstar Oldsmobile. We drove down to Roaring Springs Road and parked, and there the whole motorcade went by. And it was late. It was like 11 o'clock at night, which was really late for me at 8 years old.
Right after they landed kind of thing? So before
right after
they
landed. They'd had a long day. I know a lot about this story. I became obsessed with it like many Americans, many people of the world.
With the JFK assassination?
Yeah, really. Yeah, I developed a huge project for Tom Hanks' company a few years ago about it. But the next morning, my brother got my dad up and said, knocked on the door and said, you promised you'd take us to see the president. Yeah. And my dad looked out the window, and it was kind of a rainy morning. And then my dad said, and he thought, I liked Kennedy, but I thought the idea of taking these kids into a crowd in the rain was going to be a complete pain in the ass. Right. And then my brother used the two words that kills it, every deal with a parent. You promised. Uh-huh. So he said, get your brother dressed. And 10 minutes later, we're driving down to...
Dallas?
No, downtown Fort Worth. They spent their last night in Fort Worth, the Hotel Texas.
Yeah.
And a crowd of about 4,000 people gathered in the parking lot in front of the Hotel Texas. And there was I found out later it was just a flatbed truck. They'd put bunting on. They put a lectern with the presidential seal. And we were probably there for about 20, 30 minutes, and here comes the president. Here comes, there's Johnson, there's Connolly, there's Yarborough. This is 4 hours before it's all it's all going to go down. And Kennedy was really up that morning, and it was something about seeing him in color. Yeah, and he's in a blue suit, and his hair was red, and God, he looked great. And he was very jocular. He kind of kidded the crowd. He said, "I'm sorry, Jackie's not down here to greet you, good people. She takes a little longer to get ready in the morning. Of course, she looks a hell of a lot better." And,
right.
There's like an electricity in the crowd.
Sure.
And my dad was taking turns putting me and my brother up on his shoulders. And even though I wasn't too far, we weren't too far away. Yeah. There was a little kind of an orchestra pit where they'd put the police block, those sawhorses around for the Secret Service, the police, and the the media, the newsreels guys. And we were not far behind the crowd. And there were two black guys standing next to my dad and me and my brother in the crowd, and they saw my dad's dilemma. He was kind of trying to put my brother up, my Bob and me, and he said, "We'll take those boys." So for most of the speech, I was on a stranger's shoulders. Yeah. It was kind of a great moment, and I just remembered it. And they found me in a newsreel. Oh, really? Yeah, a few years ago. It's kind of a crazy picture, and because I'm up above the crowd. And, I got this, my dad had us just get, we had crew cuts and stuff back in those days. It was easy. Didn't get as much head lice at school if you had the crew cut. Right. One of those deals.
So you went home after that, and then
I went back to school. But we got to go to the Tottle House, which was the highlight of our existence at the time. It was one of these great waffle pancake houses. Yeah, yeah. It was kind of like a diner, Rockefeller's diner. Or, I guess in New York they used to have the ones called Schraff's. Yeah, sure. A gag like that. Yeah. And, we got to eat there, and so we got to go to school late. And I remember going to recess, and I was really excited. I'd seen the president, and it was, Kennedy was the man. Yeah, I was like seeing the biggest movie star in the world. Yeah, and we came in off the recess playground, and the radio was on, and we were in those single story with the central hallway, center block schoolhouses with the fluorescent lights. Yep. And we went in. I was in the third grade, Sister Annette, I remember, and all the lights were off. We were told to put our heads down on the desk, and the radio was on, and it was announced that Kennedy had succumbed to this assassin's bullet, and the nuns were all crying, and it was just unbelievable. And I couldn't believe it. I was 8.5, and I just like, I just saw him. That's not right. That can't be, and all this stuff. And I remember that night, my brother was so distraught. My 11-year-old brother. He's my oldest brother, and always was a sensitive guy. Yeah. And I remember he came and got in my bed with me that night. We had our own rooms. Yeah. We had shared rooms up to that point, but we were living in this dream house of my parents. And I kind of experienced the grief of it through him. He was leveled, huh? Yeah. Just shattered. I don't think he ever got over it. It's one of those things, That was if Kennedy was your man, he was to a whole generation. The youth looked up to him.
Well, yeah, and also it was nothing had ever happened like that in modern America. No, out in the open. Oh my God! I mean, the implications of it, like you said, like not unlike many other people, became obsessed with the spectacle and the tragedy of it.
It's like something out of a Greek tragedy. You couldn't
no doubt. It. And then also the conspiracy growing around it. So,
well, yeah, that's kind of what my project was about. We were going to do a 10-hour miniseries for HBO because I went to Tom Hanks, who I knew from Apollo 13. And
Are you guys friends?
Yeah, we're friends. We don't see much of each other. I gave him a People's Choice Award last week.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, yeah. But and I did a film with him recently called The Circle, but.
But you guys are great. Apollo 13 is great.
Yeah, it was a great experience.
I talked to Ron.
He should have won all the marbles on that.
I'll tell you, man. That's like I watched it again recently. It's really the best of the genre. It holds up. Oh, totally. Totally.
I'm so proud to have been a part of that movie.
It was great.
Tell you. And Tom was great too. A great Jim Lovell and a great leader of the cast.
He's solid. Yeah, it's like both of you guys are just such grounded, natural actors. Like, it's kind of a fascinating thing that you have this versatility. That
it's really a survival skill, Mark. It ain't any.
Mm-hmm.
You're just trying to stay employed and try to work on cool things. And
well, what was the show you pitched? A miniseries? What were you guys?
It was going to basically be. It seemed to me that all over the years the conspiracists had all had their say, and if you really, and there was a book that came out that I got to see the galleys of, and it was Vincent Bugliosi.
Sure.
Who wrote Helter Skelter.
Yeah.
He wrote a book called...
He was a DA here, wasn't he?
He was a DA here. And
yeah.
really, it's kind of amazing that he was able to put Manson behind bars for life when Manson really wasn't at the murder scenes.
Right.
It's kind of a unique situation, that case. It's an unbelievable story.
So he wrote a book on Kennedy?
Called Reclaiming History. And this thing it's too bad Kennedy didn't have this book behind his head because it would have stopped any
I just
round.
watched Jackie.
Yeah, I haven't been able to bring myself to watch that because I know that story so well.
Yeah, it's really a kind of interesting poetic meditation on grief and the isolation of grief, and also the weird, horrible coldness of politics sometimes, tragedy.
Well, then Hirsch trying to kind of try to solidify his legacy and of Camelot and all of that.
A bit of that, but also I thought
I got a lot of Kennedy stories that nobody's ever heard because of my research.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but basically, I'll give you a couple anecdotes. But we were going to do 10 hours, and it was going to be kind of like concentric circles on a bullseye. 1 hour is going to follow what Kennedy was doing that weekend, and each one we're going to do one on Ruby, one on Oswald, and finally, and by kind of deconstructing it and laying it all out, it really isn't such a mystical thing that happened. When you stand in the book depository in the window next to the one where Oswald fired from, you think, God, I could have hit him with a BB gun. It's not some kind of like, it was a real magical shot or magic bullet. And the one bullet that just didn't fall apart like bullets do. It was still kind of looked pristine, but if you look at the end of it, you can tell it has been fired. And that was the one that supposedly was thrown on the gurney. Right. It just went through two men, and by the time it got through Connolly, it just kind of
plopped out.
Yeah, it just kind of plopped out. But I got to know a guy named Milton Evans.
Yeah.
He was a William Morris agent, but at the time of the Kennedy thing, he was running Peter Lawford's company. He helped produce the Rat Pack movies.
And he was a Kennedy.
Lawford was married to Eunice Kennedy. Yeah. I think it was Eunice Kennedy. And he told me some crazy stories. He told me about going to the White House. Yeah. During the whole height of the Kennedy administration with Peter Lawford, and Kennedy really liked to listen to the Camelot soundtrack. Richard Harris singing Camelot. He had it on the thing, and he said one day, I don't know, this is kind of a crazy story. He said he went down to take a swim, and there were two Secret Service guys standing by the pool, and I don't even know where that pool is. I don't know where it is in the White House of it. And he said, "Oh, maybe it's a bad time." He said, "Oh no, it's okay, Mr. Evans." And he kind of thought, "God, they know my name. They probably got a dossier. Go on in." And he went into the pool, and there was Kennedy. Yeah. In the pool with these two gals. They were all naked, and he said he called Milty baby. He goes, "Milty baby, come on, join us." Yeah. And Milton was kind of a teetotaler and had been married for many years. Yeah. And he just said, "Gee, I'll see you at dinner, Mr. President," and kind of left. And there's
that side of Kennedy.
Yeah. And then, but then, he remembered, seeing him. He remembered going to the White House with Lawford and Eunice on the day of the assassination, and the body was held up in Dallas, and then they were able to get it out of there. Then they got to Andrews Air Force Base, where the body was immediately taken to Bethesda Naval, where they did the famous autopsy. Yeah, and the body didn't actually get back to the White House till early pre-dawn Saturday morning, and. That's an amazing story, that drive from that hospital with Jackie in the car. And but Milt got there in the early evening with the Lawfords, and there was a famous. Well, they made this movie called The Butler or something. I'm trying to think of his name. His name was Eugene something, and he was Kennedy's valet.
Yeah,
and he had been with Kennedy that morning, and he was running around the White House trying to accommodate all the house guests, the Kennedy family, and Peter Lawford and Milt and all these people. And Milt said to him, he said, Eugene, I'd like to have something of the president's. And he said, oh, I'll get something. He brought him back a Cartier watch. And Milt said, I can't take that. He said, can I have a couple of his neckties? Milt I held these neckties, kind of amazing. But he told me this story that's never really been documented about the Kennedys having a wake in the dining room of the White House.
The family.
The family on the Saturday night that Milt was present at. Yeah. And there they are. And it was almost like, he said, it was almost like a cocktail party was going on.
An Irish wake.
An Irish wig. Everybody was getting completely hammered. Yeah. Except Rose Kennedy, who sat there very stoic. Yeah. The mother with a drink in her hand. But she said at one point somebody took off took off Ethel Kennedy's wig and put it on Milt. Milt was a balding guy, you know. And everybody said, look at Milt. And everybody started laughing. And Milt just said it was the most surreal thing he had ever witnessed. There's another guy named Siegenthal, who was a Secret Service guy, who kind of substantiated the story. And he said it was as if Jack and Jackie had retired early from the party.
Oh my God!
The weirdest damn thing.
That sounds pretty weird. And, now, was that part of your show? Were you going to?
We had a lot of that stuff in there.
Now, why doesn't a show like that go? What did Tom?
Well, think? You know, Tom was all in. But 2008 happened. You know, we started working on this in about 2006, and 2008 happened, and we were trying to get it ready for the 50th anniversary. 2011 would mark the 50th anniversary of the great inaugural speech. Mm-hmm. You know, when inaugural speeches were really something to be inspired by. And then it was going to be 2013 was going to be the 50th. Yeah. That's a significant anniversary of a historical event. We thought, let's have something ready to go. And Tom's company had built a reputation doing these long form dramatizations of American history, Earth to the Moon, boy. But the budget, it was at a time after 2008 where everybody pulled back, and I think HBO was kind of getting out of the miniseries business. Little did they know that they had started something that was about to grow with Netflix and all these 10-hour series. Yeah. And it's too bad we didn't get to do it. Yeah. We didn't get to do it.
Well, when did you come to Los Angeles? And when did you actually start acting?
I came to Los Angeles when I was 18 years old. Yeah.
What year was that?
That was the January of 1974. And
oh my God, that's like the heyday.
I went to my dad and I said,
Crazy
who
town.
do you know in Hollywood? And he said, Jesus, I should have taken you to more business meetings. But he had taken me to movies and plays and, art. And so I was, I gravitated. And my dad wanted to be an actor. And what's funny is he became an actor after he retired. Yeah. He was in 6 movies. Sam Raimi put him in 6 of his films.
Really?
Yeah. Actually, more than that. Walter Hill put him in Last Man Standing. He's the old Undertaker in that. And Bruce Willis keeps giving him business because he keeps killing people. And he had a great kind of renaissance. I think it kind of kept him alive to 91 because he had something to do.
How did he get
most people just die off because they get retired. They got nothing to do.
So he did this because they all knew him from you.
Yeah, kind of. But he kind of had to get in there and take classes and stuff.
He did?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
What age?
At 70. And all these young kids, they wanted to do scenes with him where they needed a patriarchal figure or something. So he's at the Beverly Hills Playhouse.
That's hilarious.
He calls me up one day and says, I'm getting out of the lumber business. I've been in the lumber business 50 years and shit, I can't sit around and play golf or, watch the hair grow out of my nose. So he goes, why don't I, thinking about getting into your game. I go, getting into my game? What the hell are you talking about? He goes, yeah, I'm thinking about doing that acting thing. And I'm like, Dad, God, you're going into the golden years. You don't do this to yourself. It's a tough life.
What had you done?
I don't care if you're successful or not. It's still a tough life.
You made some movies, though. You were a guy, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is about 25 years ago. I had a pretty good career going at that time. I don't know what happened since then. But,
come on.
Come on. Yeah. And so, I said, if you're gonna really do this, you gotta take classes. He signed up at the Beverly Hills Playhouse and took classes. But I came out here. He had a friend. He knew two guys in Hollywood. He knew Hal Wallace. He played golf with him.
Yeah.
Hal Wallace. He writes Hal Wallace. Hal Wallace writes back. Says, I can't even get my own son a job. He's not in the unions. Unions run everything. So thanks, but no thanks. He writes a guy named Milan Herzog, who made these educational films for Encyclopedia Britannica.
This is to help get you in.
Just to get me in. The guy writes back and says, tell your son to go back to school. We get too many young people out here. They think they've got something to say, but they need to go to school.
Yeah.
And then my dad wrote him a second time, said, you got anything for him? He's got to come out there.
Yeah.
God, help me out, will you?
Yeah.
And so he gave me 2 weeks' work as a PA on a thing called Gateways to the Humanities. I met a guy there, another director who introduced me to an art director who was getting ready to art direct his first Roger Corman movie, which was called Big Bad Mama. Angie Dickinson and William Shatner. And so I worked on that, and that's where I really kind of got my cherry popped in many ways. I was driving a 20-foot van full of set dressing all over Los Angeles, and it was kind of blew my mind.
Were you in the movie?
No, I wasn't in the movie.
But you were working for Corman for a minute.
Working for Corman on a few films, yeah.
Oh yeah,
oh yeah.
So what was the first movie then? Was it a Corman movie?
Yeah, the first thing I was working on the art department on a film. It was a thing called Crazy Mama, directed by Jonathan Demme. And I heard over the walkies, and everybody's got a walkie-talkie. I heard over the walkie said, "Hey, so-and-so, some guy, some day players, a deputy part didn't show up." And they said, and I heard there was kind of a pause. I heard Jonathan Demme on the walkie-talkie say, "Hey, get that kid off the art department truck, cut his hair, take him to wardrobe, and bring him to the set." And I had really long hair. My hair was like down to here. We were all hippies back then.
Yeah.
And they said, as they cut my hair, they put me in this thing, and I had one line, and I had this thing, but I was too stupid to I could have probably joined the Screen Actors Guild, and I didn't. Then after that, I decided I really wanted to try and I wanted to go to film school. That was my heart was set on going to film school.
Yeah.
My heroes were guys. My dad had turned me on to all kinds of. I mean, he showed me foreign films. He got me into like Chaplin and Keaton. Keaton particularly spoke to me. I've just been a huge devotee of Keaton ever since I first laid eyes on him. And so, but I was into this idea, and then I came up with guys like, going to see movies, but guys like Clint Eastwood and Warren Beatty.
Sure.
He made Bonnie and Clyde, and Robert Redford was making his own movies. Paul Newman.
When you got here, that
Steve
was happening,
McQueen.
right?
These guys, well, they had been happening.
Right.
Been happening.
So you came out in 74.
Yeah, but it had been happening from the late 60s. Yeah.
Right.
And these guys, all these big stars, had kind of empowered themselves by starting their own companies, starting to make films, the stories they wanted to tell. And I thought, it's hard trying to fit into somebody else's thing. You kind of know what you probably are good at,
right?
Or the stories you feel passionate about or you want to tell, but you have to go through this nightmare audition process trying to be build a career and stuff. But I thought that's what I wanted to be, and it wasn't an ego thing. It was more. I thought, I'd like to tell. These are the stories I like to tell. Bonnie and Clyde is one of my all-time favorite films.
Great movie, yeah.
And that was a movie nobody wanted to make, but Warren Beatty was able to get.
So you wanted
made.
to be one of those people. You wanted to be an auteur, a guy that produces his own movies and got his own shit done.
Yeah, and
that
if
was
I have
the
to
plan.
be in them, fine, that's okay. But if I don't, that's okay too.
So that was the model,
and I wanted to be a part of this business.
Yeah, and that was the model.
That was it.
Did you go to film school?
I couldn't get in. I tried to go to. I'd worked out here for 2 years behind the scenes. I was making short films with different disparate groups of people. I had a great buddy named Tom Huckabee. I made a lot of films with. Another guy named Rocky Shank. I made a lot of films with. I try to go to SC and UCLA. I have these crappy SAT scores that that are haunting me from some test I had to take at 8:00 in the morning on a Saturday when in high school. I was completely hungover.
Yeah,
and it's like, guys, I've studied, I've worked in film, and I want to come and learn from you. Couldn't get into those, and found out about a program through NYU where you could study at a professional acting school and take academic credits at Washington Square. And of the 4 disciplines, there was Circle in the Square, famous repertory comedy. There was experimental wing theater.
Yeah.
There was Lee Strasberg, which the method thing seemed a little too much psychoanalysis and a little too neurotic for me. But the one discipline that stood out to all those was Stella Adler.
Did you go to New York?
So I got into this program.
Yeah.
I went to NYU at 21, and I lived in the Village. And you couldn't be in a play till your junior year, and that sounded like bullshit to me.
Right,
so
right.
I ended up producing 2 plays my freshman year on the side, and I got a scholarship my second year. But after 2 years of that, I thought I didn't see what I would do with a degree.
Right.
And I felt like I as much as I loved theater and I loved being in New York, I kind of longed to get back into the movie game.
Well, what did you learn, from her, that enabled you to think like, all right, I can, I've done a little acting, now I've got the tools I need.
I didn't feel that way. I was not a star pupil. I was listening to your podcast with Jason Segel recently.
Yeah.
It was a great interview, and you guys seem like a great soul. You guys got on well, but he talked about putting on this production, his own production at 16 of the Zoo Story.
Yeah, right.
Well, I tried to do a scene from the Zoo Story in front of Stella. I didn't even get a line out. I was so eviscerated, I didn't get out of bed for like 3 days.
Before you even got a line out.
I mean, she came in at me and she said, how did you even get in this class? And she said, darling,
really?
You're not ready for realism. And she was a tough taskmaster. And we were students at NYU, but we were thrown into these professional classes.
Yeah.
I remember seeing Harvey Keitel at this class and Jeff Goldblum and working actors. So, and there was no fucking around, and it was so fucking serious. And God, it crushed me. It really crushed me.
Was that your last day?
No, I got through 2 years of it, but that wasn't why I dropped out of NYU. I just felt like I got the meat and potatoes. Stella Adler would say, you're either going to learn it here or you're going to learn it out there, and it's going to take you 25 years.
Right.
But
so you went that route?
Yeah. I took the 50-year plan.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm still on it. I haven't quite paid off my student loan yet.
Oh, come on.
No, seriously. It's a game. You're trying to, you just keep trying to do better. And
no, of course, but I think that you must have learned something there.
I did. I got a foundation there. But I remember between my freshman and sophomore year, I needed to make some money. I had found a loft in Tribeca.
Yeah.
Nobody lived down there. Now it's all
right.
dormant and $100 million buildings. But I found a raw space. It was $350. I was going to share it with these other 2 gals who were students at NYU, and we were going to kind of do plays and stuff down there and use it as a rehearsal space. But I needed to make about $10,000 fast. And I called my dad and said, where can I make some money quick? He said, well, the hardwood lumber business had branched into selling surveying instruments, and there was a big mineral boom up in near Casper, Wyoming. He said, go up there, you can probably make some money. So I fly out to Casper, Wyoming. I get a paper, and I interviewed by the Sweetwater drilling company. We ended up calling it Sweatwater.
Yeah.
And I got a job working on drilling portable uranium drilling rigs.
Yeah.
And we do these test holes, and they come up and drop these Geiger counter things down to see if there was plutonium down there. Or uranium.
Yeah.
And it was a crazy job. You lived in these trailers out in this thing called the Red Desert. And we had our own cook, and there was about 12 of us. And
it's kind of preparing you for being on set.
It was something else. Yeah, it was something else. And God, the food was great, but we worked our asses off on that thing. And
how long were you out there?
I was out there for about 12 weeks. And in the weekend they'd drop us off in town, and I'd stay in this old rundown hotel in downtown Casper. This is the summer Star Wars comes out. So I'm kind of bored now. I brought this book with me that I'd bought in New York at the theater bookshop. And it was a book, a biography of Buster Keaton.
Uh-huh.
And it was called Keaton by Rudy Blesh.
Yeah.
It's a great biography.
Yeah.
And I started reading this thing out there on the prairie, and I was just mesmerized by Keaton and his story and how he'd started out in the medicine shows with his dad, and how Harry Houdini saw him fall down a flight of stairs when he was 2 and said, that's some Buster your son just took, and they started calling him Buster Keaton. And so that weekend I was so bored, I went to the public library and said, and looked, and they had these Super 8 Black Hawk films. You remember those?
Sure.
And they had a bunch of Keaton shorts. And I said, is there a way I can see these? I said, well, I have a projector. You can go up in the conference room. Yeah. And I went up in the conference room and watched these films. And I thought, I'm going to make a film while I'm on the weekends.
Yeah.
So I started making my own Buster Keaton film
in Casper, Wyoming,
on the weekends, and I recruited the local drunks and the guy in the pool hall and a gal that I met. Oh, I was even so bored, I even had a job as a waiter at the Ramada Inn.
Yeah,
and I met a gal there named Rebecca Schmidt, and I got her to be my heroine, and the guy in the shoe repair place.
Black and white.
No, I shot it in color, Super 8, and called it Heart Luck, because there was a lost Keaton film called Hard Luck. But so really, I guess that was it, you know. So I went back to NYU for a year, but then I thought,
what happened to that film?
It's around somewhere. I don't know. It's in a closet somewhere, probably, you know. But I sent it back to all the people. I wasn't able to go myself, but I had it copied, and they had it was in the middle of winter in Casper, Wyoming, and they had a get-together, and all these disparate people that I'd kind of pulled together in the town.
Oh, really? They went to the screening?
They had a little screening there, and I thought that was really cool. That's what I love about filmmaking. Again, it goes back to that
ensemble.
You said something too on one of your interviews about, we're all kind of in this. You got to stay out of that weird mind trap, that place where you're isolated and you're in that. It's just that. It's like I describe it as this void, this abyss. Yeah. And sometimes you'll kind of circle it, but boy, you don't want to get in there. And you said it. It was a beautiful line. I wrote it down about you. You got to stay engaged with people. Yeah. That's what saves us. Being engaged with other people.
I know. Believe me.
I think that's a beautiful thing, Mark. And I want to say you bring that to these interviews. Yeah. And when I heard that, I go, God, that's really it.
Oh yeah, because if especially now, now
more than ever,
toppling into the pit of self is easy, and I've done enough excavating.
Yeah, me too. Too much. The tough thing about this business, people always see the success. You had this and you had that and you had an interesting career. Right. But I have so many stories that didn't work out, and all the times I've been left fallow, where I've had to be out there trying to hustle a project where I know I've got a good project. I shouldn't be out there hustling. I should be working. Right. But it's just not that way. Yeah. It's not because I'm special. It's just these are my skill set, and don't waste it. I want to give something.
But you've been pretty fortunate, in the last years. Anyways, you've done some great work.
Last year, I got to a point where I was so, I don't know, confused, dismayed.
Really?
Just wondering, kind of. I've been trying to get a movie called The Bottoms off the ground, a great script by Joe Lansdale. Yeah. Great author, Southern Gothic thriller. I got Brent Hanley to adapt it. He had written Frailty for me. And
you directed that one?
Frailty. I wanted to do, and God, I spent a whole year trying to get this thing off the ground and trying to get it to actors. And if you don't have an offer with it, God, it's a chance to play a blue collar Atticus Finch. It's a movie that's, if it's made well for a good price with good cast, it'll be a classic forever. Yeah. I don't know about a lot of things. Yeah. But I know about some things. Yeah. In the movie business and a movie script that has a pedigree. And but I had to get out of the house, and I was driving Louise crazy, my wife, and so I went by Habitat for the Humanity in Ventura, and they were building some houses out in Santa Paula, and they said, just show up and they'll give you a tool belt. So I started doing that, and
building houses.
And this guy's kind of looking at me as we're kind of putting in these shingles and stuff with with this air gun thing. I've actually taken my hand off. What the hell am I doing? Yeah. But it felt good to be doing something.
Yeah, helping out. Yeah, that's true, because when you get stuck in a project that's kind of going nowhere, or you're hitting your head against the wall for something that is so big in your mind, but you can't get it out of your mind. Into reality, that's when you have those moments where it's sort of like, I got to get my hands dirty somehow.
But I don't know anything else.
I know.
What I do for a living takes 100 people to make the machine go round and to make the film. Right. So it's
But so I mean, that happened during like downtime from acting.
Downtime from acting, I guess. To tell you the truth, I really wanted to just be directing at this point. Yeah. I had 2 great outings. Yeah. I've had 3 times in my career where I've gotten to work in my own shop. And they were the happiest times, most productive times. and weirdly enough, the most giving times, because I was empowering other people.
Yeah.
I produced a film that Mark Wahlberg and I and Juliana Margulies starred in called Traveler years ago. That was after Twister. I was able to get that off the ground. I produced it, and I was very involved with it. A guy named Jack Green, Clint Eastwood cinematographer, directed it, but I was very involved.
I didn't see it.
It's a nice little picaresque kind of film about Irish-American gypsies, travelers, flim-flam guys, and then I got to direct Frailty, which was a great experience. And then I got to do a Disney film. My agent, Brian Swarstrom, who I've been with forever, who's really thrown stuff at me, like the series Training Day. I thought, I can't do that. Yeah, it's you should try it. And weirdly enough, it's been a fun experience. Because again, I'm engaged. God, just keep me engaged.
Yeah.
But I did the
Places.
Places. I did the greatest game ever played for Walt Disney. And it's a sports film, but Frailty and Greatest Game are kind of considered classics of their genre. I'm very proud of those films, but I got to not just empower myself.
Right.
I got to give other people a leg up and give this actor a shot and give this guy a chance to do this.
Set deck, set design.
The composers from everybody on down. And
set deck always kills me because you walk into these things, you're like, this is crazy how perfect this is.
I'm true to the art department.
Yeah.
I like to say I made the ultimate sacrifice. I became part of the set as the actor. But no, I love art direction. My dad loved art direction. That's one of the first things he called my attention to. I remember coming out of Dr. No with my dad, and he was like, yeah, the art direction and Dr. No's hideout and stuff. And he was like, yeah, it was cool. And that girl, she was great too, Dad. Yeah, oh yeah, Ursula Andress. She's all right.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff.
It's great that he gave you that.
You know, we talked about Stella Adler. Stella Adler doesn't get the credit as far as anything good that I've done. But a guy named Vincent Chase. Yeah. He was one of the last of the studio coaches. I met him after Lords of Discipline, which was my first gig. And there were two actors who had completely different styles. One was very gregarious. The other one was very cerebral. Michael Biehn and a guy named Rick Rossovich. And they found out their only formal training had been with this guy, Vincent Chase. He had a studio on Sunset next to the Rock and Roll Ralphs. I started working with him. That's how I started getting hired. Because I would go and work on the script with him. He would get my subtext and give me ideas and ways to spin it in a different way or come in with a different take on it. And that's
like a coach.
And he's a coach, and he's been my coach to this day. He's
still around?
He's 87 years old.
And you go to him with a project, you get the project, and then you hash it out?
Absolutely. And not even once did I ever leave after seeing him and talking about a project that I didn't go, God, I'm glad I took that time. Because I gleaned an insight.
I should do that if I go back to this show next year.
Look, acting is kind of like boxing.
Yeah.
You know, and you're going into the ring. And you don't know, and if you got a guy in your corner going, okay, this guy's is a body puncher.
Yeah.
You want to tire him out. You want to just dance around him. You want to just stick and jab or whatever that is. Yeah. I'm not a boxer.
Well, that was a funny thing. I talked to Ethan Hawke, and he said before he did Training Day, he watched a bunch of Denzel Washington movies like you watch game films.
Oh, yeah. Well, I could see doing that.
Yeah, it's like this guy, he's big.
Well, let me tell you, that's like getting thrown into the polar bear cage, you know, and they put raw hamburger all over you, you know, because there's certain actors that can do, they'll just play with you like a cat and a mouse. I mean, you know, and just maul you just constantly.
Does that happen to you?
I went toe to toe with Denzel.
You did?
My biggest scene in the movie, I had two guns. I have to shoot on my first day.
Yeah.
So damn, I'm chugging a bottle of red wine in my trailer.
Yeah.
Or I'm going in there.
Yeah.
But it worked out okay. I was ready. I was ready.
So what was your what was the big, because it looks like, I'm looking at your filmography, like you did a lot of little bits here and there.
I know you got to ask me about one film.
Which one?
The one that to this day, if I do 1,000 movies, will be at the top of my obituary.
What is it?
Weird Science.
It's weird because, you know, you're one of these guys where, you know, you look at the filmography and you're like, oh yeah, oh shit, right. Oh fuck, that's right.
Oh God, it's the story of my life.
No, but it's not bad. You're a character.
It's not bad. I never had that.
Tombstone was like, I thought
Tombstone was great.
It's a great movie.
I got to be with Sam Elliott and Kurt Russell and Val Kilmer.
Yeah, Val Kilmer's Doc Holliday was great.
Oh, he killed it. He's a great actor and a great guy.
When you got here in the 70s, I mean, what was it? a party? Was it like, I mean, what was it like just, going down Sunset Strip? Like, that's the thing about the mid-'70s that always kills me, is that, like, it was such a more intimate business. All the big stars were, like, hanging out at Dantana's or somewhere.
Yeah, but I was on the outside looking in. I came out here,
But it must have been a party.
Not for me.
Oh, shit.
Not for me.
All right.
I'm going down to Hollywood Boulevard on a bus. Down to Wilcox and Fountain, where I had this job on this Encyclopedia Britannica thing for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting next to a transvestite, which is kind of blowing my mind because I'm from Texas, and God, watching Deliverance completely traumatized me.
Me too.
Squeal like a pig, indeed. Good Lord.
I didn't remember how graphic it was because
oh my God,
my grandparents brought me by accident. to that movie.
That's a real accident.
Yeah, and and then like when I saw it recently, I'm like, holy shit, it's a lot more graphic than I thought.
It's still so disturbing.
Oh no shit.
And Ned Beatty, talk about a brave performance.
Oh, no kidding.
And the way he's so shamed after that happens, and he can't even look at the rest of them, and they're all kind of saying, hey, it's okay. And no, it's never going to be okay again. But I'm going down Hollywood Boulevard in this bus, and I'm looking around, and at those days, God, Hollywood Boulevard was so run down. And, they've been trying to gentrify it for years, but 74, going down this thing, and I'm thinking, God, I missed this place by 50 years. Yeah, because I was really into the old Hollywood. Last night I'm watching Turner Classic Movies. I'm watching Miracle in the Rain, and I'm just sobbing watching Jane Wyman. Right. And I guess I've always been more into the history of the town and the golden age and things like that. And I always felt like I missed it.
But so Weird Science, that was your you consider that your big break?
Yeah, there was a couple of anecdotes I wanted to. I was thinking of them on the way over here that I think you would appreciate.
What?
That was a big supporting role, and I had to audition my ass off. Mike Fenton was the head of casting at Universal at the time, and John Hughes was the man. Yeah. I remember I think he had Hitchcock's Old Bungalow on the lot, and they were having the auditions initially not there, but then as I got the callbacks, I got to go in and read, and he sat in on the readings. And I started throwing in stuff. Again, my dad being the old salesman, the road guy that he had been. Yeah. My dad, he would come back with all kinds of expressions and things. And so I thought I had learned enough from the audition process that, look, if you're doing a Tennessee Williams play, you're not going to change the wording. Right. Or Shakespeare or Arthur Miller. But in a screenplay, it really is a blueprint thing. Yeah. And it's malleable. And
in the audition.
You just want to everybody's going to say the same lines. So why not say it a different way? Or do something. Make them look up. Yeah. I built a time bomb one time. A briefcase bomb, and took it into an audition. For what? Just to get their attention. For what? Some crappy pilot I did.
What was the angle? Like, I'm going to blow us up?
Well, the guy's supposed to be a terrorist. He didn't have any lines, but he's always kind of making stuff. Yeah. And I did the one line. They said, thank you very much. I said, I'm not finished yet. Then I opened up the briefcase, and it just started saying, oh, the military taught me everything I know about explosives. Uh-huh. And then I get the call from this. I had a horrible agent at the time, just real B-grade agent. He says, don't ever pull a stunt like that again. And there was a pause, and he went, you start work on Tuesday. You got it. But I had all these auditions for Weird Science, and I just threw all these crazy things in there. Like some of my most famous lines from that movie are lines my dad would tell me, like, I have this line where I see Michael Hall and Alon Mitchell Smith. They're all drunk, and I go up to him and I say to him, I said, hey, how about a nice greasy pork sandwich served in a dirty ashtray? And people love that. And that was something my dad would say to me and my brother on Saturday morning or Sunday morning when we were hungover from being, in high school, from being at a beer bust, out near a campfire out in the middle of nowhere in Aledo, Texas. He'd like to go, God, hey, Bill, hey man, Billy, look like you're not feeling too good. Looking kind of green. Hey, I got just the thing. And he had this, I guess there was a sardonic nature to my father. He loved real gallows humor. Yeah. He loved kind of a Dickensian kind of, I don't know, weirdness. Yeah. And so I threw that stuff in the audition. I get the job. And then I started developing the character, but a lot of this stuff came from these really weird camps that I went to with my dad. My dad would send my brother, Bob, and I to these camps. We went to 2 camps. One was in Cape Cod, Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Started going there. It was an 8-week camp. I went there when I was 8 years old.
Wow.
It was the summer of 63.
It's a long time to be away.
But I had my brother there, and I loved it. I had the best time there. But these camps all had these weird rites of passage. They're all kind of cruel.
Yeah.
The upper class, the upper campers, know, it would kind of
hazing.
Yeah, kind of a hazing thing. We had this thing at this other camp. It was called the Rough Ride, and you had to go on the Rough Ride. And it was for the younger campers. But if it was your first year at the camp, even if you were coming in as an upper camper, or even if you were a first-year counselor, you had to go on the Rough Ride.
Yeah.
And I'd heard legendary stories about the Rough Ride.
Uh-huh.
And it was a ride that started at midday, and then it went to the night.
Yeah.
And it had a legend because these guys would ride through at the camp completely covered in mud, yelling, and it just looked like they'd been on a hell ride. At the end of the day, they'd ring a bell, we'd all come up to the main lodge, and they'd ride by. So we go out on this camp. These guys would come. These counselors, everybody was really nice. Camp, the counselors are nice. But when the Rough Ride, they'd read these lists at the lunch hour. There were about 5 Rough Rides. You didn't know which one you were going to be on. And all of a sudden, these counselors, nice guys, they come in with kind of war paint on, and just kind of a pissed off expression on their face. I think we're going to read the candidates for today's Rough Ride. And when you hear your name, you stand up and you say, "Ready to ride, sir." So they call out your name, Marc Maron or Bill Paxton.
Yeah.
You jump up, you go, "Ready to ride, sir!"
Yeah.
And they kind of be like, "Yeah. Yeah, we're going to see how ready you are." Psychological. Yeah. And we did all this stuff. Another one we had was, which I used in Weird Science, there's a funny moment where I go downstairs the next morning, and there's this, and there's Elon Mitchell Smith, and he's got Kelly LeBrock's panties on, but at first I don't see that, and I see that he's got a nice omelet there, and I go, "Hey, man, that looks pretty good. Let me see that." And then I throw these eggs up against the bottom of the cabinet, and I put the pan out, and they just drip down. I go, "Now make yourself one, dickweed." Yeah. And so that came from a gag on the Rough Ride. You ride everybody up to this this mountain river, just rushing river, and there's this huge bluff across the river going straight up about 200 feet, and at the top are this Indian paintbrush. It's wildflower. Yeah. It's a state flower, Wyoming. And so you ride up against, it's on the Rough Ride where I got to be the initiator. Yeah. I went crazy. Yeah. I find one of the counselors had to say, "Cool it, Tex." They used to call me Tex, little Tex. Right. So the guy gets across the river, so we tell them that they have to go across the river, go up the hill, bring the Indian paintbrush back to their horse and put it in their bridle. So the guy you see these guys go across there, they're getting washed down the river, they're climbing up the damn hill, they get the thing, they come back down the hill, they try to come across the river, get washed down the river, and the guy comes up and you go, "Hey, let me see that. Hey, that's pretty good, that's really good. Now go get yourself one, dickweed." And then the guy had to go back across the river, and it was that kind of stuff. So I told John Hughes these stories, and he went, "Oh yeah, we got to figure out how to do that." And I had it was the first time I was really empowered in a role where the guy on the other side, the director, was just egging me on and giving me so much confidence, and I love John for that.
And what happened to Big Love?
Big Love, we went for 5 seasons. I think we kind of told our story. Yeah.
That was not planned to be more.
Mark Olson and Will Sheffer, the guys who they made the show.
Now, when you got into that,
they kind of felt like they told their story. I mean, it had gone kind of. Yeah, its distance.
How much research? How obsessed did you get with Mormonism?
It's great when you get a specific task as an actor to learn a profession or to learn a culture or to learn history, because it's fun. The book that kind of really was the primer for me was the book by John Krakauer called Under the Banner of Heaven. And in that story, there's a kind of a gruesome contemporary story. But what I do remember being completely absorbed and captivated and fascinated with was the history of Joseph Smith, how this whole thing started, how he dug up the golden tablets, and how he started this religion, and then how Brigham Young continued it after Joseph Smith was assassinated. And how these people wanted to do their own thing so badly, they went as far into the wilderness as they could so where nobody would bother them. And, you know, polygamy was legal in their religion till, I believe, 1893. I used to know all this stuff, but goes in and out. But and then there were the fundamental sects that continued practicing,
right,
you know, true Mormonism, which was about the principle and
that's still going on.
Plural marriage, yeah,
still going on.
Yeah, still going on. You bet.
So, because I thought that was the interesting part about your character is that you came from that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was a great character, but the first season we were kind of trying to really kind of define the genesis and the you know, the origin stories of these characters. And what was interesting was by season 2, Mark and Will had come up with the idea that I had been, you know, this whole idea of these lost boys.
Yeah.
These kids get to be, you know, they go into puberty, they start looking at the girls and these fundamental compound sex, whatever you want to call them. And all of a sudden the older men are like, you know, we got to get them out of here. They're getting a little frisky.
And that was a real thing?
Yeah, it's a real thing. And if you get into an infraction, I think that's really how John Krakauer got involved in it, through the Lost Boys. It's sad. These kids are thrown out of their homes.
They're a threat to
they're a threat. They're
pussy supply.
Damn straight. But they're all damn straight. but they're also if any infraction, they get drummed out.
Yeah.
And so my character, they kind of built this story that and this was something that kind of evolved through the first season, through my talks with Mark and Will, and how we would finding a real root to this guy to give him really just this real weird foundation where he had his kind of foot in both camps.
Yeah.
And so they had this story, and I tell this story, I think it was season 3 or 4, where I try to run for office.
Yeah.
And the guy tries to smear me because there's a mug shot of me at 17.
Yeah.
And he's put it all over the hall,
Right.
And I come out, and there's a hush, and I bring the photo out, and I say, yeah, I guess you guys have all seen this. He said, and I have one of the greatest speeches I had as the character, where I talk about, when I was 15 years old, my dad told me to get in the truck, and we drove into Salt Lake, and all of a sudden he said, hey, get out of the car. I said, what do you mean? He said, just get out. And I got out of the car, and he left me there. That first night I slept in the ditch. I was scared. I was cold. I didn't know what to do. And then I met these other kids, and I did things for cash that haunt me to this day. And I love that. And I just like, whoa, that's a
good spin.
Yeah, that's a good background for a character. That's dark, you know. We didn't explore some of that darkness, but it was there as the underpinning.
But as a political candidate, taking responsibility for it.
Yeah. Really taking it to him.
Sure, but I get what you're saying.
I did things for cash that haunt me.
Sure, we all get it.
You know, I can say that as Bill. Mark.
Yeah. Hollywood.
Can Mark say that?
No, I hosted a game show once. That was about, in terms of business, that was about as dark as it got for me.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Well, how did the Mormon Church respond to it?
You know,
do you ever get Mormons coming up to you going, like, you kind of hit it? Or you didn't get it right? Or?
No, mostly you got it right.
Yeah.
But, you know, the thing of it is, it's like, look, all of us in our family trees, you know, have strange relatives, strange things that happen, good and bad. There's histories of families, histories of cultures that you want to not talk about. You want to make them go away. But it's your history. It's not you.
Sure. Yeah, I know.
So it's a weird thing. So I thought that we kind of, through the show, put a very human face on a religion that a lot of people who aren't part of that religion always thought of as a cult.
Uh-huh.
And to me, I thought they would have maybe embraced it a little more. I think it was a guilty pleasure, more of a secret thing. I'm sure they watched it. And again, Mark and Will were very responsible and did a lot of research to get it right. But really what they were trying to do was more use this idea of polygamy in a modern world, this taboo social
to make a fun family show.
To make a fun exactly.
Yeah.
And use it as a prism to refract, you know, age-old ideas and society's taboos about religion, marriage, all these different sex, all these things.
It's great. So, what have you found in the stacks of your dad's papers that have blown you away, other than that picture you showed me?
I found a letter from Bing Crosby.
Oh, really?
I found a letter from President Johnson. I'm always better from hearing from you, John.
Oh, really?
Total politician. Ben Hogan, hey, John, I'm going to have my annual invitation. I'd like you to join, but try to have some fun, and different things. My dad was a great correspondent.
Uh-huh.
But he didn't write long letters to people. He didn't want to bore them, but he just kind of, if he'd had a nice dinner, like say he'd had this interview, you'd get a letter from him, and it'd just be good. Mark, I really enjoyed meeting you, and I guess a great show. I wish you continued
success. Nice social etiquette.
Very good, very good.
So you're actually getting to know him even more through this stack of stuff.
Yeah. Was he a perfect man? Was he a virtuous man? Absolutely not. I think my parents kind of dropped the ball by the time we all became teenagers.
What do you mean?
But, they just seemed like they kind of checked out. I felt like I'm seeing things that I feel could have been handled a little better,
Sure.
But again, like your parents are kind of gods to you as a child.
Oh, no, I know. And when they live a long time, eventually you get to that point where the statute of limitations on telling your kids things somehow runs out in their head, either because of age or other things, and they tell you shit, and you're like, I need to know that, really?
I didn't need to hear that. I really didn't need to know that.
I didn't want to know that part about you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hey, got to give a shout out to two guys that worked with you.
Yes, sir.
One's an actor.
Yeah.
MC Gainey.
Oh, great.
He said he loved working on the show.
He's great. You work with him?
Yeah, we worked on a few things together.
He's a great guy.
We did Club Dread together. We had a great time. But
he was so happy to be, he said something funny.
He's a big admirer of yours, Mark.
Yeah, like when he had to hold a baby. He said, this is the first time in a movie, I think, where I've held a baby and I wasn't, going to kill it for something.
or eat it, or barbecue it. And I think Ron Perlman was with him, and they ran a bookstore or something. He said it was kind of the climatic episode.
Yeah.
And a stand-up, Dean Del Rey,
Dean Del Rey.
Of mine.
Oh, yeah.
Dino.
Yeah, Dean Del Rey. Oh, yeah. Yeah, he loves you, man.
Oh, great.
And I had a great time talking to you. Was it okay for you?
Oh, buddy, it was great.
Worked out?
Really fun. Thanks
man.
So much.
Yep.
Cheers.
All right, that was fun. Thanks again to the History of Comedy for sponsoring us today. The History of Comedy is a new CNN original 8-part series featuring archival footage, plus clips of recent shows, movies, and stand-up, as well as current interviews with some of comedy's biggest names. I'm in it, I think. I'm pretty sure. I'm not saying I'm one of comedy's biggest names, but I'm pretty sure I'm in it. That's The History of Comedy. Premieres February 9th at 10 p.m. Eastern on CNN. Go to WTFpod.com for all your WTF pod needs. I'll be in Durham, North Carolina on the 17th, Friday. I'll be in Charlotte on the 18th. And a lot more dates coming up. If you go to WTFpod.com/tour, you can find them and come see me. And we'll hang out for a little while. Hopefully we'll have a nice time. All right? Oh. I don't have a guitar with me. Boomer lives!